Hello, everyone. I'm Charlie, and welcome back to another DraftKings DFS Slate breakdown. Our second day of Champions League for the week here. And unlike this big Bayern slate, where it was like minus 1,000 Bayern, there's a lot, it's a lot more condensed here. Like, it's not a huge favorite. There's Arsenal, who are, where are they? Minus 550, but like I think it's a generous minus 550. I don't think they're gonna smash like a Bayern would where they're kind of run up the score. I think ours like a minus 550 Arsenal one looks more like a 2-3 nil at best, just because of the way Arsenal play. Then you got like City minus 200, Barca minus odds against PSG, Dortmund minus against Bilbao, Napoli minus against Sporting, Leverkusen minus 100 against PSV, and then Juventus and Villarreal both plus odds. So yeah, it's pretty even across the board here, other than that Arsenal game. And like I said, like I don't expect that to be all out domination like you might think from those odds. And then in terms of our goal contribution odds, we've got a bunch of the Arsenal guys there at minus odds, Joker as Eze, Saka, Marino, Martinelli, just like their whole basically all their attackers basically will be minus odds. Then for Man City, of course, there is Erling Haaland, perennially minus odds. It feels like minus 180 for goal contribution. And this one, Phil Foden minus odds as well, as is Marmoush, who I'm not even sure if he's even fit yet. Barca and PSG, a bunch of the Barca guys are. I think this game could be high scoring too, so that makes sense as well. Dortmund and Athletic Club, we've got Girassi at minus odds in this game. Napoli and Sporting Lisbon, a bunch of guys at plus odds there, but only like plus 100, so not super far off the rest of the other games. Leverkusen, we've got a bunch of guys at plus odds, including Grimaldo, who we'll talk about a little bit later, since he's going to be an interesting decision as well, plus 130, which is pretty good for a wingback, to be fair. Villarreal Juventus, a bunch of guys at plus odds there, and that is it. Now, in terms of our projected lineups and set pieces, as always, I'm going to try to buzz through this a little bit quickly, just because there's 7 games here. We have a lot to get through. But in this projected lineup, it should be Saka and either Martinelli or Odegaard splitting on the other side, just because Saka doesn't usually take this usually Declan Rice side. It's really Declan Rice isn't projected. If he starts, of course, it will just be his share of sets. That's something to watch out for. They just don't have him starting in this projected lineup. And then for Olympiacos, it should be Musakidis, excuse me, and Coutinho splitting. Barca and PSG. Barca should be Yamal and either Olmo or Pedri splitting, with Rafinha out, of course. Then for PSG, Lee Kang is probably most likely, but like Vitinha, Nuno Mendes, they'll all end up taking here and there, so you can't really count on them too much for a consistent routine. Leverkusen should be Grimaldo and Alex Garcia. PSV should be Joey Veerman, Monopoly. Dortmund should be Svensson and Koto splitting in this lineup. Athletic Club should be Jared Gieser and Unai Gomez split. Monaco should be Chayo Enrique taking mostly. Like there's chance to Akliuch take something. It's weird they have Pese starting at center mid here. I just don't really see that happening. We'll see how lineups actually shake out. Man City should be potentially a fulfilled monopoly, maybe Rangers splits. Napoli should be De Bruyne and Politano. Sporting should be Gonçalves and Kenda. Villarreal, Molero and Pepe split, I'd imagine, in this team. Juve should be Coop Mainers and Yildiz splitting. And as always, if you want updated sets after we get confirmed lineups here, as well as a core and lineup notes, as well as me there to answer some questions on the slate, make sure to check out FSI Discord, which can be accessed through a subscription in the link below, in the website linked below. But yeah, now let's go into our pricing here. Yamal, 11,200. He is going to be just a tempting option just because of just how good he is, especially with sets now with no Rafinha. He's just one of the best players in the world, and he gets a ton of DFS points as well, just through crossing, foul runs. He kind of does it all, takes a ton of shots. He's super tempting. Same with Saka, 10,500. A little bit more of a favorable matchup than Yamal, but not sure how banged up he is. Got subbed in the last league game. You don't know if that was just in anticipation for this Champions League match, though, so you can't really judge that too harshly. But either way, like you kind of want your guy going 90 minutes more often than he has been. He's been a 60-minute guy since coming back from injury. You just don't know whether how long it'll take him to kind of go back to going 90 minutes every game like he used to be. So like he's gonna be super popular just because of the matchup, because he's taking set pieces, because of the name. But I think it's pretty close between him and Yamal, and they're both good options, and it's tough to decide between Holland, who I think will get overlooked here, just because of your Sakas, your Yamals. I think they'll soak up a lot of his ownership up top. And Holland in cash formats especially, I just don't see being overly popular just because he lacks that floor. Monaco away is not the easiest matchup as well. So could be a little bit interesting as a pivot there. And in GPP, I think he still will get some ownership just because of who he is. And I think he's a super casual friendly guy. Since they just see Holland, they know he scores goals. And they don't play the floor game as much as I like. After that, there's Joker is here, who I think it's fair to say has not shown his best stuff so far. Um, it's only kind of gotten goal contributions against like the super weaker sides in the Premier League. Hasn't really done it in a big game yet. But you can argue that Olympiacos is kind of more similar to like the games where he's gone off, like Leeds at home. I think he did well, and Olympiacos could end up being comparable to that. Although I think Olympiacos are a bad team. I think the odds disrespect them a little bit. But it's not a bad spot for him. 9,600, not a horrible price range. I wish he was a little bit cheaper, but he's not a bad option here. Girassi, not terrible. Rashford, if he somehow starts. Yildiz sets there. There's plenty of options to choose from at forward. I think it's pretty tempting pay up slate, as we saw from just kind of those 3 or 4 elite guys at the top here. But there is some nice little bargain options, like I'm looking for one guy specifically, and that is Matteo Politano at 3,700. Set pieces there, minus odds, favorable matchup. So like I think he's going to be a super tempting option. I know he didn't show his best stuff in that first game against Man City, subbed at 55 too, but they had a red card super early on, and they're not going to judge too much because they're playing Man City away regardless. Sporting at home is a lot more DFS friendly matchup there. So I think that could be a pretty interesting option there. After that, I'm looking at not a ton. Like Barkpool is not a bad little GPP. Play same with Jonathan David. Both have upside there, and in matchups where there could be quite a few goals, like they're both not bad little options. Conce Sal, if there's no Kumin starting, should have a share of sets in that scenario. Could make him an interesting little play. And then after that, there's not a ton. And Naki Williams at 4,500 feels a little bit underpriced. I don't think that's crazy. Luca, if he starts up top for Napoli, 4K attacker. That's not a bad little option there. And there's not a ton, but like there is pretty decent options kind of at every range at forward here. Now midfielders. Oh, if it'll let me switch, there we go. As at 8,900. If he starts, there's no Rice. He should have sets in that scenario. Like if he starts over Marino, let's just say, and starts as like the number 10, should be a Saka as a split. I think that can make him super in play. Kind of attacking talent there that as we saw for Palace. And with set pieces, he'd be a really great option. After that, De Bruyne, I love here. 7,500 goal against Milan over the weekend. He was like super pissed too because he got subbed like the 75th minute, which means that like he's gonna be super motivated for this game, I feel like. And I like the match against Sporting, like I said, with some of the other guys like Politano, like Luca, like uh no, those the three I talked about. But like Napoli guys, I think are super in play here. They're super underpriced, I feel like, for their spot too. I think almost 7,500. My issue with him is that he's just a little bit inconsistent for minutes. He's a like 45 to 60 minute guy typically for Barcelona. However, they are a little decimated by injuries, so that's kind of the only um, argument for him for maybe getting potentially more minutes here. Like Gavi, Firmino, Rafinha all can play in that number 10 role all out for this game. There's a chance that he goes further, but they could just sound like Rashford's or something for him, move people around. So I wouldn't consider him safe for minutes even with all those absentees. Declan Rice 7,400. If he starts, he's fine. I worry about the upside on a 7-game slate is the only issue there. But like 7,400 for set piece taker on the best matchup on the slate, I can't really argue against it too much. Now, Phil Foden, I love Phil Foden here. I don't mind the Monaco matchup, and he's been like a monopoly set piece taker. He's got 90 minutes, like a couple of games consistently now. Shows he's kind of fully fit. However, it is Pep. Like you can never fully trust him. You might just randomly sub him just because of Pep. Like he just doesn't really have a consistent pattern in terms of substitutions, in terms of his team selection. However, if he's in, I'll be super tempted by a Phil Foden Monopoly situation too with that matchup. After that, like De Bruyne and Foden kind of run this mid range. In terms of guys who are like a little bit cheaper, Veerman, not bad options like your raw set pieces, Odegaard. If they like rest Saka somehow, that could make him super in play. He looked pretty good too against Newcastle over the weekend. So he's got a little bit of form coming into this. However, I worry about his shoulder a little bit. He's been subbed twice now in the past like month with a shoulder injury. And you know, I'm scared about that because I played in both those, or one of those times I had, and the other time I didn't. But he scares me a little bit when you got like these guys coming back from injury. You've been in and out of the team a lot. Other guys, I'd be tempted by Mikel Marino. I think is a decent little GPP option. Got the goal against Newcastle. He's he's like their highest scoring player I saw over the last calendar year, just because Arsenal don't have a ton of super attacking options. And he ends up kind of picking up the slack at times. They play him at striker. They played him at striker when Havertz was out at the end of last season. He's a big set piece threat. He just kind of hits in everything. He's a big body who is just really dangerous in the air. But he makes some sense here. Lee Kang in, if you want to just take some potential set pieces, a little bit risky is the only thing. But I don't mind that as an option. Rangers, I keep thinking he's going to split, and he just hasn't been. But he's been pretty solid. He's been Man City's most consistent, really solid guy 4 minutes, which I think I said in my Premier League video last time. Yeah, like you went 80 in the first Champions League slate, 16 points there. He's just solid. Pedri, 5,400, I think that's a bad spot. Garcia, 5,200, I think that's solid. In terms of like these kind of bargain bin guys, some people I think about here are potentially, I don't, Akut Mainers. I'm scared of his minutes a little bit, but he takes set pieces. He was pretty good over the weekend, but I think they were playing against 10 men is the only thing. So you got to take it with a little bit of a grain of salt. 4K for a set piece taker is not bad. Jargieser, another cheap set piece taker, not bad there either. Chiquinho, a little bit tough match against Arsenal is the only thing, but he's not awful. Malero, 3,400, I think that could be a little decent hunt option. He's going to be super low owned too. I just don't think people are familiar with who he is, but he was pretty good for Las Palmas. Hasn't really broken in too much for this Villarreal team. He's kind of sometimes starts, sometimes doesn't, but I don't think he's a bad little player. In terms of guys below, not a ton. Frankie de Jong, sure. Joe Bellingham, if he starts, sure. Kind of just guys who are just whatever. You don't really think too much about it. Unai Gomez, if he starts, potential set pieces there, not bad for 3K. And yeah, that is mid defender now. And the first name you will see is AK Grimaldo, who I love as a player. He's one of my favorite players in the world. He's a guy who crosses a ton, takes set pieces, super attacking. It's a ton of goal contributions. And at 8K, it's not cheap or anything. But if you use like a midfielder forward, say, you're getting a guy who crosses a ton, pretty good goal contribution equity for only 8K. I'd say that's a pretty tempting option. And just because he's a defender, which is just a historically underpriced position on DK, it just makes you like double back a little bit just because he's 2K more than the nearest defender. But he's also got just world's better goal contribution odds than these other guys, much better floor as well. So Grimaldo, I'm probably gonna have him as a core play. The only thing that you can maybe argue against him is if you kind of want to double up pay up forward like a Yamal and Saka, it makes it very difficult to go Grimaldo on top of that. I will have GPP builds that kind of rotate between these three since it's just so difficult to put them all together. I'll even have GPP builds where I have all three together and try to find some bargains at midfielder and in my other defender slot. But that is just kind of the one drawback with Grimaldo. It's just kind of the salary restriction for other positions. That's the only thing. But with all that being said, I still love Grimaldo. I'll still play him. There's cheaper forwards that I'd be tempted by. I don't feel like I need to jam Saka and Yamal together too hard, although that could be famous last words. They're both really great players, both great options as well. And you can jam all three, like I said, like it is doable. So yeah, I'd start most of my builds around Grimaldo. When we get to our core section, he'll be there. I'm telling you now. Oh, alternatively, you could go to like double up on Dortmund. Poto and where is Svensson? Poto and Svensson, both kind of this mid 4 to 5K range. They both been super solid for Dortmund, splitting. I I did see that Gross took like a monopoly off the bench in their league game, so I'd be a little bit scared if I saw him in, just because Poto got subbed, so you can't really judge too much off of that. But he was taking the side that typically is the Svensson lefty in swinger side, so that scares me a little bit there. I just don't know what they do if all three of those guys start. If it's just projected lineup right here, though, I don't think there's really anything to worry about. It should just be Svensson and Koto. Like none of these other guys really take too much. Yeah, so just the one name I'd watch out for is Gross. I think that really affects your Dortmund wingbacks quite a bit. Otherwise, I think they're really good options, and you can maybe even go both of them over Grimaldo, maybe a cheaper defender. You want to go a little bit more balanced. Now, Hakimi, 5,700. It's a tough matchup here, but he's another defender. He has so many goal contributions. He's similar to Grimaldo, where he's just really good going forward, which is just really what you want to see for DFS. But it is just the Barcelona matchup. It's a tough game, is the only thing there. But at 3,700, I think that's a bad option. Timber, who's looked really awesome. Like I've been shocked how good he's looked going forward. He's like was a center back for forever. He's not a guy you think of as a guy who gets crosses, gets goal contributions. He's been doing that. He's not projected is the only thing. But if he starts, like I know it feels like weird, but he's very much in play even at 5,800. Ben White, I wanted to check because he was in projected over Timber. 4,700. That's just not cheap enough for me. He hasn't looked quite as good as Timber. There's a reason why Timber's been starting over him. I don't know that quite as much. There's like your cheaper options here. Not a ton that I really like. Rierson, if he starts instead of Koto at right wing back, I think that could be tempting. He should just pick up the slack and have sets in that scenario, and he's cheaper than the other two Dortmund wing backs. I like that as a play if he starts. However, the most likely scenario I'd say is probably him just ending up at center back here. If he starts like right center back and they play Koto at right wing back, that's what we've been doing most of the time when they play together. So I have Enrique, 4K for set pieces. I don't think that's a bad option. Just the city matchup, it just scares me a little bit. And he was really bad in Monaco's first game Champions League, where they kind of got just dogged by Club Brugge, just got absolutely just demolished. He got yanked at halftime as a result. However, he went back right back to the league game over the weekend, had 7 crosses, took like 3 or 4 corners. He was solid once again. But I just lose a little bit of a rotten taste in my mouth from that Bruges game, and just makes it just tough, tough. Now, in terms of our true punts down here, there's not a ton that I really like. Maybe tempted by, I don't know, a Ruben Diaz as a center back punt. Okay, if he starts. Saliba, 3K, I think could be super popular. I think he's Arsenal. Arsenal center backs are probably a good place to look here. Like Saliba. Gabriel's a little bit overpriced, but Mascara, if he starts, I don't mind going for center backs on these big favorites just because I think they have a pretty decent chance of getting a contribution and they just dominate, so they have a pretty good chance of keeping a clean sheet. And yeah, I think they had a ton of passes. I talked about a little bit about for the Bayern defenders, didn't really work out, unfortunately, but it was worth the risk just because they're 2,500 or something. I had a bunch of them, and they're like 5% owned. Get a goal, suddenly you're really big chilling there, and they're so much more likely to get a goal than the other center backs on this slate, just because their team is going to have so much of the ball. They're just going to get so much corners. But after that, like there's not a ton here. Kind of just play whoever fits the rest of your build and try to pair him with a set piece taker if you're going to go in GVP build. Like go Beraldo, we hang in a build, or Araujo and Yamal or Pedri or Olmo. Try to play for one of these center backs scoring off of a set piece. Goalkeepers now. I'm not gonna talk about. I've said before in our last Champions League video, I'm just not gonna talk about goalkeeper anymore because I don't think there's a ton of edge there. Zakir, I think, was the highest scorer in the last slate on Tuesday. So take that as you will. Now, in terms of my core, I'm putting Grimaldo, but he's kind of a soft core play. I don't mind trying to prioritize Yamal and Saka if you want to go that route. And then I'm going to go Phil Foden just because of the matchup here, as well as just his role in this current Man City team. Pep seems to have a lot of faith in him right now, and he's just been super solid. Now, I'm a little bit torn. Do I put a Saka, Yamal, or Kevin De Bruyne? Those are kind of the three names that I'm thinking for this third core piece, even over a Foden. I could see working out. I'm gonna put De Bruyne for now, just because I think there's less alternatives in his position compared to forward, and a lot of super tempting forward options here, especially between like Yamal and Saka. Committing to one or the other is pretty difficult. However, these are all good plays here. They don't fit together, but like these five guys are who I'm almost certainly going to have in my core when we get all the confirmed lineups. But they're all really great options for now. If I had to rank them, I go Grimaldo, Foden, De Bruyne. I don't know. They're all really good. All really good options. But yeah, I'm sorry for on a super concrete core there. It's just really hard on these 7 game slates here. I ended up having Jack, so I didn't think was like a chance of starting in my core for this Tuesday slate, which is another reason to check out that Discord. But yeah, guys, that'll be it. Good luck, and I'll see you for the next one. Peace.